back in the day, there used to be those memes of like nice guy, bad luck Brian and good guy Eric and all that. And it was like some really goofy looking kid, and it would always be like some opportunity comes up and he has some horrendous bad luck, right? She put a picture up there of that guy, and she put Dillard finally gets a shot at a big project, and on the bottom she put CG Civil War.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then like immediately the first two people to respond to that were Maitland and Ethan.
And it couldn't come at a worse time either. I mean,
I know
your house is like in shambles. Your workstation is a mess, and then all of a sudden, like
that's
the one
my
guy.
fault.
Well, I'm just the one guy who's supposed to be paying you money for something. All of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh, he might be this, or he might be." You're kind of like, "Oh, geez, man, can anything?"
Well,
else
that's the
fall on
problem,
this
right?
guy?
I'm not getting paid. I'm a partner in the book, so I get paid on the back end after the book funds.
Right.
So it's like I really need this book to do well, You're
like, it's just one.
No, but that's the issue, Levi. That's the issue. Is like I've been for the last 6 months working on this book, meaning I've been really taking a cut in pay because I've been doing this book.
That was John Dillard, the artist behind Yellow Flash's new book, The Mighty Golden Patriot, explaining how Yellow Flash had opted not to pay him for all of the work to create this comic book, which was originally intended to be released in the fall of 2023, as he actually made a back-end deal where he became a 40% owner, and so he would be receiving payment if there were any profits made after the completion of their comic book campaign. Recently, Ethan Van Sciver read all of his DMs with Yellow Flash dating back to 2018, and amongst those, there was a very interesting piece of information. While Yellow Flash didn't pay John Dillard for his art, he did have money for other things.
So he's buying the first appearance of Spider-Man #1 and not paying Dillard? Is that what I'm hearing here? So you're sitting there buying expensive comics and then crying poor when it comes time to either pay for a cover from me or pay your artist. I didn't even think of that. You bought a copy of Amazing Fantasy number 15? So Dillard's pay went to buy rare comics, says Jose M. Amazing Fantasy 15 is really expensive. That's the first appearance of Spider-Man. How do you know he didn't pay Dillard? He says he didn't pay Dillard. Everybody knows that. It's been established. He did not pay Dillard. Dillard says he did not get paid by Yellow Flash. A 2.0 Amazing Fantasy 15 recently sold for $21,506. That's a 2.0. That's basically a comic that's falling apart in your hands. $21,000 for that. How much did he end up paying for his Amazing Fantasy 15? That is insane. There's the landmine in this episode. Wow, says Liam. His girl wouldn't let him pay Dillard. My wife would never let me pay Dillard. But I am buying Amazing Fantasy 15. So you're thinking it's probably about $30K, Margaret Miracle? $21K that could have went to Cuck Dillard.
As Uncapped Turtle mentioned here, a low-grade copy of Amazing Fantasy 15 will sell for $20K. Just look at how this higher-grade one is listed for $140,000. A 9.6 Amazing Fantasy ended up selling for $3.6 million. Sometimes new books off the shelf aren't even a 9.6. There's a wide range of value for Amazing Fantasy 15. It could be the value of a car, the down payment for a house, or even a mansion, depending on the quality of the book. We don't really know how much Yellow Flash paid for this copy of Amazing Fantasy 15. Maybe Yellow Flash paid a meager $20,000, or a whopping $140K. Regardless, there is an irony in Yellow Flash not paying his artists, be that John Dillard, who he was paying in a back-end deal, or Ethan Van Sciver, whom he complained was quoting him too much for a cover. Yellow Flash wasn't willing to invest in his own project, but he was willing to throw a bunch of money down for a comic book he's never going to read because it's sealed in a CGC graded box. Not everybody is skeptical of John Dillard's and Yellow Flash's deal. In fact, Eric July decided to take things a step further than just supporting it.
But when you are owner of something, definitely in art and entertainment, you are, I think people don't look at it like this, but it's about risk, right? That's what you assume. So when you say, well, Flash didn't pay Dillard just as much as you could say that also the opposite, and Dillard didn't pay Flash because they're both owners, right? And that's how it works. Owners assume risk. When you are an owner of something, you don't get paid. You're the last one that's going to get paid.
Eric July further explains his reasoning and his support for this deal between John Dillard and Yellow Flash.
Let's get into the fun part, and that's the economics of it all. And as I said here, this is a ballsy move by Dillard because, as usual, artists, you got a contractor, you got a guy with a big name like Flash, a bunch of eyes, ears that people are going to lend to him. And, generally speaking, you get like a guy like Yellow Flash, he's going to pay his artist to do something, and then that's going to be the project, but his artist will be paid out as a contractor. He basically waived all of that and instead took 40% ownership of the book. Now, I'm assuming that this is 40-60 of split between those two, and that is with publishing as well as the property itself. And I'm just telling you, I obviously know numbers. If that is the case, again, I'm just assuming that this is true, and that's the case, he is going to make far more money. If this project is successful, people buy into it, he's going to make far much more money, not even close. Way more money than he would just being a general contractor and maybe even getting like a royalty on the back end of that. And it won't take him long to make that money either.
Eric July says he knows numbers, making reference to his situation in which he had 500,000 YouTube subscribers, and he ended up raking almost $3.75 million on his first comic book campaign. Eric July and Yellow Flash both have 500,000 subscribers, and here Eric July is implying that because of his large YouTube following, Yellow Flash is going to have a similar level of success as Eric July in terms of sales on his comics. So will Yellow Flash perform similar to Eric July? Look at what Eric July did in the first 24 hours of his campaign.
The initial proof of success. I mean, the guy raised $1 million in 24 hours. I mean, that to me shows that people are excited about what he's putting out, and that he may have a chance to become big, to take down the big boys, Marvel and DC. But
And while Eric July claims to know numbers, it seems Yellow Flash is performing leagues beneath him. And while Eric July assumed that Yellow Flash would pull similar numbers to him in the past because Yellow Flash and Eric July both had 500,000 subscribers, he's now singing a quite different tune.
Australian 15 says you're making a straw man argument. No one said viewers equal backers on a 1-to-1 ratio. They're saying your viewers are your primary market, and if you can't get more than a buy, then you're in trouble. All right, that may be your argument, but that's not other people's argument. So let's say that. But either way, I would make an argument that that's stupid. And I'm going to explain exactly why I think that's a dumb argument from a person that's trying to, if that's an argument, especially if you're a businessman and you're trying to make that argument because you're tying so much value in the followership, right? And so you're saying that someone is in trouble just because they have been unable to convert based on what number that is. I don't know, because you're saying it's not a 1-by-1. Well, what is the proper metric and who made it? What's the manual on the proper conversion rate on a sale because someone follows you for a different reason? You know what I'm saying? So no, you're not. I would argue that you're not in trouble just because they do or do not match. That's irrelevant to it. Whether or not something is going to be successful, your follower count is irrelevant to that. So no, it's not a straw man. That may be your argument, but even your argument that you're making here is terrible. To say someone is in trouble just because they're not converting their followers that, again, follow them for something else to buyers of something that is totally unrelated, right? Because it's not like, I don't know if anybody's watched, for example, Flash or myself even, right? Like Flash in his case, most of his views or most of his videos are not based on comics. Does he do them? Yeah. Is he a big comic guy? Obviously, if you know Flash personally, yeah, he's huge. And does he do videos on them? Yeah, but most of his shit is not based on comic books. It's not reviewing comic books. It's like he said right here. Mark Wade, student guy, Mark Wade was on live stream, has 30 viewers. And again, say what you will about Mark Wade, 99% of people, Mark Wade being tied to a book is going to outsell them. So congrats, you get more viewership, but you don't get more sales. Or vice versa. Like it's like, so yeah, it's not a straw man at all. Not a straw man at all. Like, and I would argue that your argument is it's not a good one. Maybe saying it's terrible is a little bit unfair, but it's not a good one. I think to say that someone's in trouble based on the conversion rate of follower to sales is just boneheaded. You know?
So why exactly is Yellow Flash not pulling the same numbers as Eric if they have a similar number of subscribers? That's something I explore in a previous video. Make sure to check that out too. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, or
you are a hoe ass